Că există la SAS Institute soluții specifice pentru ieșire din criză, pentru analiza unor date, ca să facă niște predicții, să vedem când ieșim din criză și care sunt cele mai bune strategii de ieșire din criză. Ce ați sugerat dumneavoastră operatorilor?
Yes, I think the set of new services and data-driven services are something which will happen, but we should not lose sight of the fact that a global study says that till the year 2015, 70% of the traffic of global CSPs, and I'm talking about CSPs and not just telecom companies, will still be voice-driven, and about 60% of the revenues and profit margins will come from voice. So though the channel by which you deliver that service, whether you deliver it through a circuit switch or an IP backbone or any other such technology, would be decisions that you will need to look at, because obviously the cost of serving or delivery of that service is a key parameter. But don't lose sight of the fact as business and service providers that you have to look at voice still as a major mainstay. What will help you differentiate, and what seems to be the studies world over, and the experience says that the data services will be your differentiator and your USP of your brand or your brand perception enhances. Now, again, the gentleman mentioned about data. What will make services data services? All sorts of data services are not going to be successful. There are millions and millions of applications, but all applications are not successful. But what will drive, including some of the outlying areas, the fringe areas, is the ability of communication service providers in collaboration with the state, with third-party content, to drive critical applications. Now, just to give you an example, in one of the emerging markets, a market just like Romania, growing but at the same time also very, very cost sensitive. One of the key applications that they found out by just analyzing data of the usage and payment patterns and everything of customers, that the cell sites that they had attuned towards the sea were generating traffic much beyond the typical coverage areas. Now what they realized is that the Doppler effect, which obviously enhances the mobile range, was giving access to fishermen way beyond the normal coverage area, and they were able to use those services to ensure that they get a best price when they come and bring their catch on shore, rather than going through middlemen. So they could figure out what prices they could get from different locations and drive their catch to those locations where they could do. There are other applications like where there is no connectivity, medical services are not easily available, or like Orange has launched M-Money, again area where finance is. So these are the kind of critical applications which will drive. But that is not to drive the fact that because everybody is jumping that you should jump, but understand where that usage is happening, where that application is happening, and what is the relevance. So deep customer insights with data that you already have, the data that you have access to, is what will drive. But temper those application releases with the cost to serve and the cost to deliver. So that, I think, is probably one of the ways that we can take advantage of the crisis. So it's really an opportunity and not a challenge. So it's an opportunity to all of us. That's the point I wanted to make. Yeah. Just to set the record straight, all of these gentlemen who are here are customers of SAS, so I'm not really trying to sell to them. But the point is, yes, it is true that all telecom companies or communications companies are doing business intelligence, are doing understanding customers. But the question, I think, going forward, as the industry becomes more mature, there is a huge depth of products and services which go beyond the traditional services. How relevant and how depth are you at individual one-to-one level? Understanding the depth at the most detailed level, moving from what we have been doing till now as an industry at a segment level, but understanding what differentiates Augustine Vaz versus Dorian, and when would he want the treatment, even though as a demographic, psychographic, and a behavioral profile, we would be of the same group. But when is the timing, when is the right time to do it, assuming that we are in the same segment, when you do a treatment to him versus to me, is what will drive the efficiency of that process. So one would have to now get down to a much granular level, and the speed with which you react, because the content, like if you are wanting to make business, data services and content as your biggest drivers into revenue, into brand perception and customer lifetime value and loyalty and all the good things of life, your ability to say if a gentleman is going today or he's planning to ask for a roaming services, are you able to give him a service at that time? If he is consuming XYZ content, let's say of sports, are you making an offer to him at that time rather than 3 months down the line? And if you have made that offer and he has used it, are you collecting that money in time? So those are the elements that you will have to drive at each and individual subscriber customer level. And that is the sophistication maturity curve that communications companies will need to adopt. That is not to say that they are not adopting. Everybody is doing that stuff. But I think everybody needs to consider that in a much more enhanced and a much more proactive manner rather than being reactive. If you were to look at market research data and compare it with the actual usage, which is the most granular data that you have, one could use that to create a cross-section between a micro-segment that you have considered within the larger group. So if I were to take, the way I would reuse that, and I'm sure all of them have considered this, is to take that as a micro-segment and do further analysis within that segment, because the most detailed elements would be part of that. And you can then work out specific offers based on the time of usage, the kind of usage that they have, and the type of products and services that they consume. So you can use any market data, but finally at the end of it, if you want to get it more focused, it will obviously have to be driven as a follow-up. That doesn't mean, give credence to the fact that one should not store market data, but use that as an input into driving some of your other elements. The other part where you could use market research data would be to, if you are predicting, doing forecasting of demand, whether for your handset inventory or for a package of products and services that you market, you could use this as user-driven inputs into fine-tuning your forecasting and your demand and capacity planning activities. So those are areas that obviously one can use a confluence of market research data along with the most granular data.